Hundreds of venomous snakes writhe in the wet mud at the bottom of a dark pit in Northumbria. An old, powerfully built man crashes into the living coil. Fangs punch his weathered skin. Poison burns. From the rim, King Aelle looks down and smiles like a hunter who thinks the beast is finally cornered. The crowd leans in for a scream. Ragnar Lothbrok doesn't scream. He laughs, low, ragged, wrong, and the sound freezes every Saxon spine around the pit. He raises his head, eyes bright through pain, and delivers a sentence instead of a plea. When the old boar suffers, the piglets will grunt. Guards shout, priests cross themselves. Nobles trade uneasy glances. Aelle orders silence, but the words are already climbing the stone like smoke. The pit does its work. Venom climbs his veins. Heat turns to ice, and the body that raided half the world begins to fail. Ragnar's gaze does not. He studies Aelle the way a wolf studies a shepherd with the wrong dog. You think the tale ends here. His look says it starts here. When he finally falls still, the hush around the pit feels less like victory and more like a barometer dropping before a storm. Aelle calls it justice. The court calls it deliverance. Northumbrian scribes scratch triumphant lines about the end of a pagan terror. They send riders with news to every hall that ever paid Danegeld. But the message that matters is already at sea, carried by oarsmen who know every black current between York and the fjords. It travels faster than a royal dispatch and hits harder. Ragnar is dead, murdered by serpents in a Saxon hole. In Kattegat and beyond, the reaction is not wailing. It is arithmetic. Ivar the Boneless listens in a long, unblinking silence. Bjorn Ironside grips an axe until the haft creaks. Ubbe's jaw sets. Halfdan begins to list ships. They count men, horses, timber, grain. They send messengers who do not ask, they summon. This will not be a summer raid or a blaze and vanish along the coast. This will be occupation. This will be engineering. Aelle imagines axes against his gate and thinks he knows the shape of what is coming. He does not. What approaches is a machine, a winter camp with walls, a fleet staged for rotation, not glory, a banner that gathers jarls with promises of land, not loot. Vengeance will not arrive screaming. It will arrive organized. So remember the detail others forget. The guillotine of this story, the clean, spectacular end, does not exist. The pit was the prologue. The oath was the hinge. The Great Heathen Army will be the blade, and it will not strike once and be done. It will cut, press, hold, and carve a map. Ragnar died in a hole full of snakes. Aelle will die inside a system built to answer a laugh with an era. They didn't mourn, they mobilized. Fires still burned in the longhouses when the first runners left with carved sticks of message wood. Not invitations, summons. Ragnar is dead. Northumbria took him by snakes. Bring ships. Bring grain, bring oaths. By dawn, the harbors of Denmark, Norway, and the islands began to blacken with hulls, as if night were pooling on the water itself. Ivar the Boneless sat like a nail driven through a map, fixing everything in place. His legs were useless. His mind marched. He named rendezvous fjords, counted tide windows, paired jarls who hated each other with blood-price contracts that made betrayal expensive. Bjorn Ironside took the coast, timber quotas, sailcloth, tar, spare mastheads, no ornate prows, he ordered. Wait for horses. Ubbe moved inland, stripping storehouses, drafting oxen, promising land, not silver. Come for the winter and the spring after it. Halfdan rode between halls with a chest of arm rings and a bookkeeper, because this would not be a raid. This would have receipts. Messengers went in relays, or hoof, foot, oath, so no fire went out before the next was lit. Smithies screamed with iron. Looms spat sail after sail. In shipyards, keels rose in rows like ribs. Boys scraped hides for shield faces while old men boiled pitch. Priests muttered over the raven. Women braided the standard with hair cut in grief and rage. The word army changed shape. Not 50 ships for a summer, but hundreds for as long as it took. Logistics became law. Oath-taking was staged like battle. Each jarl placed his hand on the hilt and said what he would bring. Men, horses, grain. And Ivar repeated it back in a flat voice while a scribe cut tally notches. Failed to deliver, and you owed more than honor. Failed twice, and you forfeited land already promised on the far shore. They were building a campaign that could survive weather, delays, and arguments, because vengeance that depends on mood dies in the rain. East Anglia was a line item before a target. Horses first, Ivar said. Take them with terms, not with fire. We ride north. Scouts were hired, not dragged. Guides were bribed, not beaten. Winter camps were drafted on birch bark. Ditch, rampart, gate orders, forage radius, burial plots. This was the part no Saxon chronicler wanted to understand. That the Black Armada on the horizon came with clerks. When the fleets moved, the sea looked diseased. Patches of dark spreading, joining, clotting at the mouths of rivers. Drakars came in waves, not for one blow, but for rotation. So no unit starved while another feasted. On the beaches, the shield walls didn't form. Supply lines did. Carts rolled. Horses were watered and counted. Leaders met in low, quiet tents where the wind couldn't carry plans. They named it for what it was, the Great Heathen Army. Not a storm that spends itself in a single crash, but weather that settles in. Behind every axe was an inventory, behind every oath, a schedule, and behind the black sails, a decision that England would not be raided. It would be administered. Church bells ring, oars bite, hulls grind up the shingle like teeth. Men jump, not in a scrum, but in files. Shields to the surf, spears canted, helms dripping. No drunken roar, no wasted motion. East Anglia watches from hedgerows and porches and understands in a single breath. This is not a raid. It is an arrival. Envoys arrive shaking under borrowed cloaks. They offer what they have, the one thing the Northmen want more than silver. Horses, strings of them, led by boys with ash-pale faces. Ivar accepts with a nod and a thin smile. Bjorn checks fetlocks, eyes, wind. Ubbe counts tack. Halfdan marks brands into a wax tablet. Terror pays the bill. Mobility is purchased on the spot. They do not burn the coast. They build. A ditch cut in a day. A rampart in 2. Gateposts shouldered into clay while smiths set up forges under leather awnings. The winter camp grows like a timber city. Store pits covered with wattled lids, hitching lines, fenced corrals, a surgery corner where bones are set by men who have seen every wound a blade can right. Rations are weighed. Taboos are kept. Oaths are renewed around a long fire that throws sparks into a sky that smells of peat and sea salt. By snowfall, the ranks have swelled. Danes from new keels, hired blades from the Isles, angry men with nothing left in Frisia or Norway but a debt. The raven looks fatter on the wind. When the frost hardens, the column moves. Not a mob, a machine. Scouts peel ahead. Shield carts sit inside the march like eggs in a nest. The new cavalry rides at the edges, changing mounts by signal, not by whim. Villages close shutters. Priests clutch relics. The army does not slow to taunt them. It is pointed north toward one word that eats all others, Jorvik. All Saints' Day dawns with mist and bells. Within the walls, processions file to church, candles bobbing. Beyond the hedges, rams roll forward under wet hides. Ladders flex. Pavises thump into mud. The first hammer blow lands. The gate answers with a crack like splitting ice. Archers hum behind board shields. Axes work at hinges already tired from rain and age. The second blow shatters the pin. The leaf swings. The Northmen pour in. York is not taken in an hour, but it is decided in minutes. Choke lanes, fire at corners, smoke funnels along the timber beams, turning noon to dusk. A choir is still singing when the nave door splinters. A priest throws his body over 3 children and lives because a shieldman drags him aside to clear the threshold. Markets turn into kill boxes, courtyards into pens. Then the banners rise over the gatehouses and the killing stops. By order, loot is stacked. Tallies scratched, horses herded, streets cleared. On the sodden field outside the city, Ella's answering host arrives to courage and ruin. He finds not a sack, but a trap, hidden wings in hedgerows, cavalry with fresh remounts, barricades closing the roads he thought were open, horns blare, turn to screams, and then to silence. York has fallen. The net is drawn. They take him breathing, mud on his crown, blood in his beard, wrists roped to a spear shaft so tight, the hands purple. Aelle of Northumbria, boar-slayer, oath-breaker, pitmaster, dragged through the churned gate of York to the drum of spear butts on planks. No mercy, no bargaining, no backroom ransom. The host rings him in, a black wall of shields and wet iron. Ivar does not raise his voice. He simply points to a cleared square and says the only verdict the army came to hear. Debt. A platform goes up faster than a gallows. Trestles crossbeam, iron hooks warming by the brazier. Priests clutch wooden crosses. Jarls unroll salt-hardened leather. The raven banner folds its shadow across the boards. Bjorn calls for silence. Ubbe reads the charges in the tongue of the sea. Snake pit, king's order, laughter swallowed by fangs. And the crowd answers with a single low growl that feels like the hull of a ship in storm. Alive, Ivar orders again, and the handlers obey. They bind Ella forward, chest to the beam, spine bared by knives that work like carpenters at seasoned oak. No frenzy, no showman's flourish. This is an audit in meat. Ribs are prized from the spine one by one, the way a shipwright frees a rib from a keel. Lungs are drawn through the opening and laid out like wet sails in a windless yard. A hush rides the square. The old king gasps, chokes, clings to a life that has nothing left in it but the weight of consequence. Ivar leans close enough for only the doomed to hear. The piglets have grunted, then to all, debt settled. Vengeance here is not private ecstasy, it is public policy. Every thane, reeve, and wavering sword in Northumbria is forced to watch the accounting. The message is carved as clearly as the bones on the scaffold. You threw a wolf into snakes. The wolf's sons have come with law. Law written in oath, iron, and the price of a king. Terror is not the point. Order is. Ivar's men keep the ring tight. Keep blades sheathed once the rite is done. Keep the market square clear of panic. A corpse is lowered. A rumor is raised. And rumor moves faster than ravens. By dusk, submissions begin. A thane kneels with his ring sword and keys to a granary. A bishop offers coin and silence in exchange for spared churches. Halfdan takes hostages as cleanly as a scribe takes notes. Bjorn installs a puppet who understands the terms. Tribute on time. Stables open. Roads unbarred. Northumbria doesn't fall. It detonates, castle by castle, oath by oath, under the shockwave of one deliberate spectacle. The pit took Ragnar. The platform took Ella. The balance at last is even, and the North knows what kind of justice now rules its roads. They take Nottingham like a locksmith opens a familiar door. No tantrum, no waste. Stakes in the ground, trench and ramp, gate rammed, garrison folded. Before Mercia can find its breath, the great army is inside its ribs. Birgit arrives late with banners and priests and discovers the new language of survival. Silver by the cart, hostages by name, safe conduct by seal. Ivar does not preen, he prices. Bjorn inventories halls, fords, horse herds, Halfdan chalks marks on granary doors. Ubbe counts saddles like a quartermaster. When Bergred blinks at the bill, the Danegeld answers for him. Ingots stacked, arm rings weighed, a breath bought instead of a battle lost. The parchment says peace. The camp ledger says lease. Winter in Nottingham becomes policy. The longhouses go up in ranks. Smiths fire for spearheads instead of souvenirs. Paddocks fill with Mercian horses handed over freely. Scouts ride roads the way scribes read margins. The Saxon year bends to Scandinavian time. Watch rotations, tithe days, raids swapped for requisitions. This is not a summer swarm, it's a garrison. The locals learn the shapes of the new order, the tax barrel, the hostage bench. The market gate opened at a Viking's nod. Bergred breathes, but the air belongs to someone else. Come thaw, the army turns its face to East Anglia, a smaller crown, a prouder spine. Edmund meets the messengers with a king's answer. No tribute, no horses, no surrender of Christ to Odin's wolves. The great host arrives the old way, shields bright, horns low. But what follows is no berserker froth. It is a siege read from a manual. Villages stripped, roads cut, mills seized, herds corralled behind Danish ropes. When Edmund gathers what knights he can, he finds the battlefield already drawn like a net. They take him alive, too, because theater teaches better than rumor. Bound to a tree in a torn copse, the king faces a semicircle of bows. Not frenzy, procedure. Arrows thud with the rhythm of a drum lesson. Limbs first, then thighs, then the meat above the heart without touching it. He prays through the iron rain. The shafts grow like a bristling cloak. When the lessons beat has soaked the ground, Ubbe tires of it and gives the nod. The headsman's blade answers what the arrows began. A crown rolls. A martyr is made. Word of Edmund's end runs the parishes quicker than geese flight. In halls from Ely to London, the story hardens. The pagans aren't merely burning barns, they're choosing kings. And here, the line finally moves. From raiders to rulers. Nottingham's money bought time. Edmund's blood buys shape. The army posts reeves, weighs market bread, files tribute on schedules. Mercia pays and lives under signature. East Anglia bleeds and lives under memory. Either way, the great army writes itself into law. Coin if you bend, steal if you don't, and a banner over both. They think Wessex is finished. Chippenham has fallen. Alfred is smoke in the marshes, and Guthrum eats from the king's hall. Then 23 sails bite the Devon wind, and a new hammer swings down. Ubbe Ragnarsson, wolf of the western sea, coming to close the coffin. He beaches on the north coast with 1,000 killers, and the raven banner snapping like a bad omen come to life. Villages bolt their doors, church bells stutter, then choke. The last free shire looks small enough to swallow. The English don't meet him in the open. A local ealdorman, Oda, drags farmers, reeves, and housecarls into an old hillwork at Cynwit, dirt ramp, timber crown, a ring barely worthy of the name fortress. Ubbe laughs when he sees it. He rings the hill with shields, sets watchfires, and waits for thirst to strangle courage. Siege by patience, the Viking way when steel isn't faster. Inside the banked earth, Wessex breathes in whispers. Water runs low. Bread goes to crumbs. Men sharpen billhooks because they have nothing else to do with their fear. Night fattens, then thins. The Viking camp sags into that gray hour when sentries blink too long and embers look like stars. Oda chooses that hour. He orders silence, strips jingling from gear, lines men at the inner gate, farmers in borrowed mail behind the few professionals who still remember a clean drill. He has one sermon: no shouting until you can smell them. Dawn snaps. The gate bursts. Cynwit vomits fury downhill. It isn't pretty. Its bodies in a wedge, shields chewing into sleep-soft ranks, spears punching canvas before they find ribs. Ubbe's men scramble to form a wall, but the first ranks go down under weight and gravity. Horns spit alarm. The banner whips toward the melee. Axes come up too late. The English drive like a dropped anvil. They chant nothing. They remember Chippenham. Ubbe comes forward, swinging, big as the story says, splitting a man from collarbone to belly, roaring his father's name into the morning. It steadies the Danes for a heartbeat. Then Otter's point punches again, and the heartbeat breaks. A thrown javelin takes Ubbe below the ribs. A second finds the seam at his throat. The wolf stares, staggers, and falls into the mud of a country he meant to unmake. Around him, the line dissolves. Some Vikings flee for the boats. Most don't reach water. When the killing quiets, a handful of English lift the Raven banner. The Raven does not beat its wings today. It hangs dead cloth. Men who thought hope was a superstition begin to believe in it like a tool. Word runs faster than any rider. Ubbe is down. The banner is ours, and Wessex still breathes. In the marsh, a hunted king hears it and straightens. A crack has opened in the iron sky. Through it, Alfred can see a road back. They put a crown on a drowning man. Alfred takes Wessex with smoke in his lungs, Guthrum on his doorstep, and the last Saxon army already limping. His first battle as king, Wilton, goes to ruin in an afternoon. A feint, a gap, a flood of axes, the line buckles and the standard reels. Alfred learns the price of haste and the taste of ash in the same hour. He pays silver he does not have to men he cannot kill, buying months like a merchant buys lamp oil. Dear, necessary, already burning. The peace is paper. The land is knives. Mercia caves. East Anglia is a memory, and Wessex is a prize with a trembling ribbon. When the winter of 878 breaks every rule of war, Guthrum breaks with it. Chippenham, sanctuary feast, warmth, shatters under midnight shouts. Doors splinter. Hearths turn to killing floors. Alfred runs, not like a coward, like a fox that outlives hounds. Snow hard as iron, breath like smoke. A handful of friends, and a kingship shrunk to whatever fits under a hedgerow without being seen. He vanishes into the wet heart of Somerset, Athelney, a smear of raised ground in a world of reed, mud, and cold water. A place for herons and ghosts, now the capital of refusal. They dig in peat that eats boots and morale. They build huts from withies and stubbornness. They share bread thinner than parchment and stories thicker than blood. By day, the marsh is a maze. By night, it is a wall. Alfred maps both with a mind that refuses to lose its edge. The scholar who loved books learns new scripture. River levels, ford depths, the hour when fog best muffles oarlocks. From this sodden anvil he starts to hammer. Little strokes at first, a patrol cut to pieces by a blackthorn hedge, a supply boat that never rounds the bend, a picket line that wakes to knives. He chooses targets like a clerk, tallies tithes, precise, repeatable, cumulative. Priests from island chapels bring news folded in psalms. Swineherds become runners. Fishermen become quartermasters. The marsh stops being a hiding place and starts being an engine. Guthrum can take hauls. He cannot take water that moves and land that changes shape under his boots. His messengers report smoke where there should be calm, hunger where there should be plenty. The Danes march heavy. Alfred travels like rumor. Each week another Then slips through the willows, swears in a whisper, leaves with orders. The king's table is a plank. His seal is a fist wrapped in damp wool. It is enough. Then a banner appears at the edge of the fen line. Otter's men with a trophy of black cloth. The Raven, fallen at Cynwit. The The story arrives before the bearers do, and it changes the weight of the air. Alfred stands in the doorway of a hut that leaks and finally looks like a man measuring distances instead of graves. He sends messages to Somerset, Wiltshire, Hampshire. Gather at the stone. Bring what you can carry. Leave what you can. Not a summons to glory. A roll call for survival. The scholar captain writes his new kingdom on water and mud, and it holds. From reeds and hunger he is building a spine. From silence and ambush he is building an army. The next chapter will not be paid in silver. It will be paid in steel. They came to a stone and chose not to die. Word ran through hedgerow and parish. Eckbright's stone now. Plows abandoned, doors barred, spears unburied from rafters. 4,000 men, smoke on their clothes and mud on their ankles, found a king who looked thinner than winter and harder than oak. Alfred spoke little. He pointed west, then north. The message was a blade. We go to break Guthrum. The march burned cold. No songs, no boasts, only the grunt of men carrying the last of Wessex on their backs. At Edington, the land lifted into a long, raw ridge, and there the Danes waited, a wall of iron under grim weather. Banners flapped, wolf, serpent, faces painted with old gods. Alfred formed his people into what they were not born to be, a machine. Shields locked, hips touching, ashwood edges like teeth. Forward, the first impact took the breath from both armies. Edington was not beautiful. It was pressure and splinters and breath that tasted of blood. The Danish line heaved like a ship under storm. The Saxon line held like a weir in flood. Axes rose and fell, found shield rims, found bone. Alfred stayed in the press, sword shouldered, eyes on the seam where fear first lives. When a gap budded in his front rank, he shoved a second spear through it. When a drumbeat rose from Guthrum's flank, he dragged attention back with a short, savage push. No heroics, no chase, just inches, traded, stolen, kept. Midday thinned the men who still had strength for hate. The Danes began to breathe with noise. Alfred shifted weight to the right, a farmer moving a stone he had studied for months. The shield wall bent and then, at his call, snapped forward like a trap. The front of Guthrum's army lurched, then sagged, then went to its knees. The banner dipped, not victory, opportunity. Alfred didn't chase the broken. He smothered the living. Hold, close, drive. The ridge became a grinder. Guthrum's will cracked first. The survivors ran for Chippenham, a fortress fat with yesterday's swagger and today's terror. Alfred sealed it with stakes and prayer. No ladders, no glory, just arithmetic, cut pasture, poison courage, measure hunger. 14 days, and the horses were bones with hides, the men lanterns with ash inside. A white cloth came up on a stick. The last god in the Danish camp was bred, and he had left them. Terms were set not with vengeance, but with leverage. Guthrum would live, but he would change. At Aller, in water cold enough to steal breath, the warlord bowed his head. Alfred stood as sponsor while priests traced a cross where ravens once perched. Guthrum rose as Ethelstan, new name, new bond, new map. Land for peace, oaths for time, hostages for certainty. Political alchemy done with font and sword. Edington did not end the war. It ended the belief that Wessex could be unmade. From a stone in the west to a font at Aller, Alfred turned a battle into a structure. Guthrum shattered on a ridge. Ethelstan stepped out of the wreckage, and the island's future stepped with him. They did not win with swords. They won with stakes, shovels, and silver you could trust. While sagas bragged about Edington, Alfred sat with a quill and drew a line that would outlast songs. The Danelaw here, Wessex there. And then he built the ground to obey the ink. First came the burghs, not castles for lords, but fortresses for people. Earth heaped into ramparts, ditches cut to bite ankles, timber braced tight enough to break an axe haft. each site set on a road or a ford, a market or a river bend, places that mattered before war and would matter after it. A day's march between them, no more. If a raiding party appeared at dawn, a horn in one burr could wake a second by noon, and a third by dusk. Lines on a map became teeth in the earth. He wrote the math that made it work. For every length of wall, so many hides owed labor. For every gate, so many men owed watch. Reeves counted it. Priests recorded it. The feared learned to arrive not when a Thegan shouted, but when the calendar did. Musters were no longer panic. They were appointments. Paths were cleared. Bridges repaired. Pack animals assigned. The army that had once risen late and hungry now showed up on time with bread. Coins followed the roads. Alfred's new pennies rang clean and honest. Silver where you scratched. Royal names where you looked. Markets trusted them. Soldiers accepted them. Foreign traders carried them home. Wessex bought time with Danegeld when it had to, but more importantly, it paid its own. Wages meant men stayed in ranks. Rations meant horses lived through winter. Accounts meant thieves were found before they wore a helmet. Law moved with the carts. Toll points were fixed. Weights and measures stopped lying. If a merchant sold salt at Wareham, he knew the charge at Wallingford and the protection he'd get on the road between. Bandits met gallows. Oathbreakers met fines that hurt worse than lash. The spine of the kingdom shifted from favor to rule, and rule travels farther than fear. When the North stirred again, new ships, new flags, the old hunger, the rematch was already tilted. Viking speed hit a network, not a village. A raid struck one burr and found three more waking. A scout cut a bridge and found a second ford patrolled. A winter camp raised its halls and discovered grain stores inland guarded by men who could be at the gate by sunset. Even victories turned sour. By the time plunderers reached their boats, beacons had run ahead of them and shut the river with chains and stakes. Guthrum had become Ethelstan by treaty. The rest learned by failure. The line of the Danelaw was not just a border. It was a promise that south of it, the ground itself belonged to a plan. Alfred's genius was simple and lethal. Make distance short for friends and long for enemies. Make hunger a weapon you point. Make time something you can spend. The next war started on his schedule, at his places, with his coin paying for the silence between alarms. They came like a moving tree line, masts crowding the horizon until the Seine turned to wood. 7 turns of the tide to pass the fleet, drums carrying over water, shields bright under a gray sky, 40,000 throats, or so it sounded, chanting beneath raven banners. Paris, then little more than an island with 2 bridges and 2 towers, looked very small in the mouth of that storm. On the walls stood 2 men who refused to be small, Count Odo with a sword nicked to honesty, and Bishop Goslin in mail over vestments. Their garrison was barely 200, enough for a funeral, not a siege. Still, the answer from the battlements was simple and shouted, "No passage." If the Northmen wanted Burgundy's throat, they would have to break Paris's teeth. The first blows landed at the bridge towers. Axes rang on timbers. Long ladders scraped stone. Men with iron hooks tried to peel the walls like bark. From above, the Franks poured boiling oil, pitch and melting wax that crawled through mail and kissed skin. A day of howling, and the towers still stood, scarred, smoking, stubborn. That night the defenders stuffed cracks with wood and rubble, lashed beams together, prayed and worked until their hands bled. Siegfried changed tempo. Rams rolled forward. Mangonels walked stones across the sky. Fire ships, hulls packed with brush and tar, were loosed upstream to burn the wooden bridge to ash. The city fought water and flame at once, hauling chains, beating sparks with wet hides, wading the shallows to drag the blazes to mud. February's swollen river did what the Northmen could not. It tore the wooden span away, stranding a dozen Frankish soldiers in the far tower. Surrounded, starving, they chose the kind of death that writes songs, opening the door, charging out, and vanishing beneath spear points. Pestilence came next. Corpses piled where arrows had fallen. Sickness climbed ladders the Vikings never built. Goslin coughed himself thin and died, blessing men too tired to kneel. Odo slipped the noose, literally riding through the blockade by night to beg the Emperor for an army. He returned through the same ring of steel with a promise. Charles the Fat was coming. Charles arrived with banners, armor, and calculation. The Northmen braced for battle. The Parisians braced for relief. Instead, the Emperor braced a ledger. He bought the siege off, silver for the pagans, safe passage past Paris to plunder Burgundy. The invaders dragged their ships over the banks rather than risk the island's fury. The defenders watched their savior pay wolves to hunt new fields. Prestige died on that river. Odo rose in the ash of it, hero first, king soon. And the Vikings learned a lesson sharper than any sword. You could turn terror into treaty, blockade into annuity, siege into negotiation for land. Paris did not fall. Something larger did. The myth of imperial guardianship cracked, and through it marched a new calculus. Take the silver today, return for the farmland tomorrow. Under the Raven, a Frankish collapse taught the Northmen how to stay. The siege doesn't end with a breach. It ends with a hand offered across a blade. A war band arrives to plunder and sails away as a government. That is the alchemy at Saint-Clair-sur-Epte. Rollo the Walker, too massive for a warhorse, relentless on foot, has learned the new math of power. Raids by winters, treaties by centuries. His ships choke the Seine. His tents spot the banks like storm fungus, and the Frankish heartland feels the familiar nausea. Pay, burn, or break. But Paris and Chartres do not fall like grain barns. Stone, counter marches, and stubborn men, Count Odo here, bishops there, stretch the fight into ledger entries. The Franks cannot kill the wolf, so they try a collar. A pavilion is raised between armies. Swords remain belted, shields within reach. Charles, called the Simple, but now brutally practical, does not preach honor. He speaks logistics. You want pasture, market, law? Hold the river for me, not against me. Take land, take name, take place. Rollo listens like a merchant tastes coin. Plunder is loud, rent is quiet, quiet money rules longer. The treaty forms under quills that shake less from fear than from the knowledge of invention. Rollo receives the lower Seine, the shell that will calcify into Normandy. He kneels, or refuses, depending on who writes the chronicle, and a Huskarl lifts the royal foot, toppling the king to laughter that tastes like victory and warning at once. There is a baptism. Rollo becomes Robert, public water for public order. There is a marriage, Gisela in some tellings, a Frankish bride in others. Politics wearing a veil, priests chant, notaries file, warriors count fields. Overnight the sea-wolves sprout roots. Norse becomes a rough French at the forges. Longships still ride the tide, but now they escort tolls. The new dukedom trains cavalry the Frankish way. Mail, lance, disciplined charges, and marries it to Viking instincts. Speed, opportunism, contempt for static fear. Castles rise. Wooden mottes first, then stone keeps, anchor points hammered into the map. River mouths become customs houses. Oaths stack like shields. Duke to king, baron to duke, knight to baron. Plunder gets a calendar. Violence gets a clerk. Rollo's court rewards men who can hold ground as well as take it. Land grants bind ferocity to acreage. Monasteries rebuild under Norman protection, paying rents that arrive on time because heads roll when they don't. Markets thicken, coin turns, writs run. The old Frankish nobility squints and sees something unsettling. Enemies who become neighbors without becoming tame. A new predator class has hatched. Normans, breeding Viking hunger with Frankish administration and armored horse. And that is the lesson. The treaty is not submission. It is metamorphosis. A raid-ending payoff mutates into a principality with a census. The same men who split shields now survey hedgerows. The same hands that fired villages now raise churches to collateralize legitimacy. Normandy does not retire the Raven banner. It files it in an archive, then rides under a banner blessed by Rome. When a duke's standard lifts in the Channel wind, it will not be another summer strike. It will be an export of this system in full. Lance, ledger, liturgy, aimed across the water at a kingdom that still thinks walls alone can save it. 1 week kills the Viking Age. 1 day crowns its heirs. At Stamford Bridge, Harold Hardrada bleeds into the Derwent. At Hastings, a Norman banner rises over a hill of English dead. 2 blows, clean, consecutive, snap England's spine. September 1066, Hardrada storms south, a thunderhead out of Saga. York bends. The bridge narrows the fight. Harold Godwinson marches 300 kilometers in 4 days, hits like a hammer at noon, and breaks the Norwegians bare-chested and gasping. The last great sea king drops with an arrow in the throat. Tostig falls beside him. Of 300 ships, a handful flee north. The old Viking road ends in a ditch beside a wooden span. There is no breath. The wind turns, the channel whitens, and William lands while England is still binding wounds. Harold pivots south with blisters and bravado, draws a wall of shields on Senlac Ridge, and dares the stranger to come uphill. Arrows fail, infantry buckles, feigned flights shear off eager pursuers, cavalry finds seams. By dusk, the shield wall is a grave marker. Harold, pierced, hacked, unkinged, goes down, and with him the line that answered to Woden in older songs. Hastings is not a raid's loot. It is a corporate takeover signed in blood. Conquest demands more than a battlefield. William reads the country like an accountant. He rings London with fire until the city yields, accepts a Christmas crown in Westminster while nervous guards torch houses outside, and then turns north to solve the only kind of rebellion that scares a mounted state, a peasantcy with nowhere to aim a lance. The answer is the harrowing, not battle, removal. Barns burned, plows smashed, seed salted, cattle slaughtered, villages scraped to chalk. From York to Durham, the land learns hunger with a new Latin name. Chroniclers count 100,000 lost. Winter counts more. This is policy by famine. Make memory your garrison. Then comes the ledger to lock it in. The Domesday Book, rolls of parchment that weigh more than any sword, lists pig and acre, mill and meadow, who answers to whom and how much. England becomes an inventory. Castles stud the map. Mottes harden to keeps. The old earls disappear beneath French titles and French law. The language splits along class lines. The island's mouth changes shape. William grows broad and brittle on victory. In Montes, his horse rears in flame, the saddle pommel ruptures his belly, and the conqueror rots from the inside, while confessors whisper of the north. The funeral is a parable, the corpse too swollen for the tomb, the gut bursting when forced, the church gagging on the smell of a rain. Power ends as meat. Ragnar's arc closes here. Ella, the man who dropped him into snakes, dies screaming under a blood eagle. The kings who mocked the north are replaced by northerners who learned to count. The sons did not merely avenge, they finished the job. First as raiders, then as rulers, finally as makers of a state that crosses the sea and stays. England dies twice in 1066, at a bridge and on a hill, and is reborn under men who traced their line to the pit and decided to own the island that filled it.